right. Welcome to the 23rd Annual Library of Congress National Book Festival, a place where everyone has a story. At this time, we ask that you turn off or silence your phones. The closest restroom is over your left shoulder, kind of catty corner behind you. We also want to notify you that this event will be recorded and that your presence at this program constitutes your consent to be filmed or otherwise recorded. Our presentation for this session brings together Sherry Budge, a librarian in our local history and genealogy section, with Emily Mercer from our conservation division for a how-to program for children and families based on our family history for children's guide. They will be talking about making a family tree, tips for preserving family photo albums, and helping you with family genealogy. So I will hand it off to Sherry and Emily.
Now we're on. Okay. I'm Sherry Budge. I'm a reference librarian in the main reading room in the Jefferson Building, and my specialty is local history and genealogy. Now, how many of you, show of hands, know what a family tree is? Yeah, just about all of you do. It's actually a chart that shows the names and relationships of all the people in your family. They can be very fancy, or they can be very plain. Just depends on what you want to do. You can use a computer program, or you can draw your own with a paper and pencil. It can be low-tech, it can be high-tech. Some of them are very colorful and have places to put photographs or drawings, and some people even make very fancy, colorful family trees by hand. What's important about your family tree is that you write down the facts you find about your family and record where you found those facts. This makes it easy to refer to the facts later and to share them with others. Now, how do you find out about your family? Okay, one way is to go to the library, obviously, but another way is to talk to your family, your extended family. So you can very first thing we recommend is that you mine your own house. Look for the photographs in your house. Look for the documents that are hidden. Look for letters. And when you find those things, you can ask your family about the details. What did this letter mean? Why is there a stamp on this letter that says, who are the American Indians? And then when you visit your relatives, you can ask them what documents they have and ask them to verify the names of people, the places, and the dates. Talking about old photographs is a great way to get family members to tell you about the events and the people in the past. Your family may have collected official government documents or newspaper clippings, programs, and more. Gravestones are also another great place to find information, and spending the day in the cemetery, or even half a day in a cemetery, is a really interesting outing. You can learn a lot from gravestones, and they are considered a primary document for your research. Usually they record births and deaths, but sometimes they have additional information like other members of the family, the second wife or the first wife, or the names of all the children. So think about the times when your family gets together. Not in the cemetery necessarily, although funerals are a great time to find more details. Maybe holidays, weekends, special events, reunions. At your next gathering, ask if you can record these talks. Many cell phones have excellent sound and video recorders. And then be sure to write down the names of everyone who was there And in addition, you may want to write down the stories you've recorded. Here are some good conversation starters. Tell me about the time. Who was your best friend? What was your mother's best recipe? Can you make that recipe? Did you like school? Now, that's not such a good question because it's a yes or no question. And people will say, no, I didn't like school, and leave it at that and go do something else. So say, what did you like best about school? Or what were you best at in school? What pets did you have? What were you really good at? Tell me about a time you were very sad. What did you do about that feeling? And what are you scared of? Why are you scared of that? But yes and no questions don't promote discussion. So we're going to leave those by the side. So these are some of the questions we talked about. Now, how are you going to, after you've collected your stories, how are you going to preserve them? Anybody have ideas about what they would do? Photo albums? Yes. What's that? Recording or your oral histories. Right. Anything else come to mind? You write them. You can draw pictures about them. You can create your charts, your own charts. Make lots of copies of what you've learned and give those copies to your family members. We hope you enjoy exploring your family history by collecting, preserving, and sharing your stories. Now, the staff at the Library of Congress has created guides to help you locate and write your family history. This guide can point you to guides about immigrant groups, U.S. states, and other sources of family history. We call it the Guide of Guides. So you can see up here at the top, it's called Local History and Genealogy Research Guides. We've also created a guide to help families with kids find family history projects to do together or to learn about family history. We added lists of books in the back that you might enjoy reading. So not only do we have nonfiction bibliographies in this guide, but we also have bibliographies of fiction based on family history research. So you might enjoy reading some of those. I'm going to turn the time over now to Emily Mercer. Do you want the papers?
Okay, good morning. My name is Emily Mercer, and I am the Advanced Intern in Photograph Conservation at the Library of Congress. I'm a third-year student in the master's program at SUNY Buffalo State University, where I'm pursuing a career in art conservation, a job that combines science, history, and art to preserve your treasures. Earlier in this presentation, we heard about genealogy, looking at documents and photographs, and creating family trees. My portion of this presentation is about how to physically preserve your photographs, photo albums, and scrapbooks. Now, has anyone here had their photograph taken? Yes, I bet you all have. In fact, I bet most of you have had your picture taken at school on picture day. One day, you're going to do something important, and somebody's going to want to remember you. We usually remember people through photographs. Stand by. So, do you know either of these men on the screen? Do you recognize them? That's right. Abraham Lincoln is on the left, and Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. is on the right. These photographs are being well preserved at the Library of Congress so that they last generations. Thank you all for your patience. Okay. You too can keep your collection of photographs and albums safe. I have compiled a list of some preservation and conservation recommendations to make sure that those pictures of you in your collection last a lifetime. We want to avoid storing our photographic materials in attics, basements, or the garage. Why do you think that is? So these locations tend to not have air conditioning or heating, and constant changes in temperature and moisture in the air can damage our collections. Also, whether we like it or not, attics and basements can sometimes get wet. And if photographs spend too many days damp or submerged in water, they can become damaged and grow mold. Additionally, these locations tend to have small critters or pests. Some of these pests like to eat layers of photographs that are made of protein. A good rule to follow is if you would not want to sleep there, don't store your photographs there. And here is an example of some insect damage. They ate away at the image layer. Now that we have discussed where your collection should be stored, we need to discuss how they will be stored. I highly recommend storing your albums in preservation quality boxes, or if you have loose photographs, first put them into preservation quality folders and then into a well-fitted box. Limit the extra space in the box to avoid movement and damage. There are many companies online that sell preservation quality materials like Gaylord Archival, Talus, and University Products, just to name a few. But let's take a look at the description Talus created for their file folders. Note that they describe the material as lignin and acid-free, and that they pass the PAT test. PAT stands for Photographic Activity Test, and it tests the chemical interaction between photographs and materials that come into contact with them. So when a company says that it passes the PAT test, that's a good sign. When it's time to look at your collection, make sure you clean the table and avoid bringing food or drinks near your collection. I recommend that when you handle objects, have freshly washed hands or nitrile gloves. We often see museum professionals in movies handling objects with white cotton gloves. We actually don't recommend cotton gloves. They tend to get snagged on objects, create small scratches, and harbor bacteria from moisture produced in your hands. Additionally, don't overstuff your photo albums because this will create pressure on the pages and the photographs. And lastly, when you're opening an album, note when you're starting to feel resistance to the object naturally wanting to open. Opening it past this point can cause damage to the pages. If you ever have concerns about your collection, I recommend that you reach out to a professional art conservator through our professional organization, American Institute for Conservation, or AIC. When you Google American Institute for Conservation, the homepage has a button to help you find a professional in your area. They can give you advice or put you in contact with someone to help you preserve your collection. Here are a few examples of how photograph conservators can help you take care of your collection. These are a few treatments that I have actually performed this year. So with this example, this is going to be a relatively quick treatment. I was focusing on this photograph and how it become detached from the page. I was actually able to recreate a photo corner out of black toned Kozo tissue, and I re-adhered it to the page with wheat starch paste. So Kozo tissue is a very long fibered, strong paper, and that was toned black. And then the wheat starch paste is a water soluble adhesive that has been proven to have good aging properties. And with this example, you had a fold in one corner. You had a tear on another photograph. And then you actually had a situation where the emulsion came off because it got stuck to another photograph. In this after treatment photo, you can see how I locally humidified the corner and put it back into plane. I was able to mend this photo corner with more Kozo tissue and wheat starch paste. And then I was actually able to get the emulsion off of this photograph and then put it back into its original location. There are also times when the outer structure needs just as much help as the photographs. So this is an example of a leather photo album, and you can see in this before treatment photograph how the leather actually started to lift off the spine. And I was able to re-adhere it down, and I was also able to create a fill where there were losses in the leather. I have a few people to thank for my images. And if you have any questions, we have provided our contact information, so that way you can ask us a few more questions. And then I will also be at the preservation booth all day, which is just over to your right. And you're welcome to come by and ask me questions about preservation or about the field of conservation. So I think now we have some time for questions.
What is the best way to preserve tintype photographs that are dark? I've been taking a photo and then lightening up the image, but are they okay just as I find them in a stack of photos? Thank you.
Yeah, so great question. So most likely those tintype photographs, if they've darkened, unfortunately they're just going to be dark. If there's any concern about a lifting emulsion, or the image layer, if you see anything lifting, I would definitely contact a photo conservator for that. But if they are dark, I would just recommend continuing to store them in a proper location, and then digitally using them to bring the image up might be the best for that situation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. When you photocopy a older photograph, does that light damage the older photograph?
Absolutely. So great question. Anytime any light source comes in contact with a photo, unfortunately, that's not the best conditions. So yes, there is a chance that there will be damage. But with a very quick scan or with a photograph, the amount of light you're using is so temporary that when you weigh the pros and cons, getting a photo of that original image outweighs the amount of light that you use. And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend scanning or taking photographs of your photographs. Yeah.
Is there a preferred way to remove photographs from those old style books that had the plastic covers that covered over them?
Yeah, we call those magnetic pages. So you're referring to the ones that kind of have a sticky paper and then that plastic that goes on top. I would definitely recommend slowly trying to remove that plastic cover. Be cautious if you do it too quickly or if they've been in there too long. They might be stuck to that plastic. So you might be able to successfully lift the plastic off. If not, I would pause. I would contact a photo conservator in that situation. If you are able to successfully lift that plastic off and they're still stuck to the page, sometimes that adhesive has become so desiccated and brittle that you might be able to run a spatula underneath the photo and it might lift off. If you're experiencing any resistance, I would recommend stopping and again, reach out to a photo conservator. I would hate for you to slice through your photograph. Yeah.
Hi, I'm a scale modeler, and I use food storage bags to store my decals to keep the moisture out. Could you use that for photographs also?
Yeah, I would have to look into that some more. We definitely have a few recommended materials that we use. One that I'm thinking off the top of my head is called Marvel Seal. We usually make bags out of Marvel Seal. It was actually, I think, from the aerospace field, and we have adapted it. And so it just has a barrier layer that doesn't let moisture penetrate. So that could be an excellent material, but I would have to look into it a little bit more.
I don't know, I need the microphone, I talk loud. Emily, thank you for your presentation and also the other young lady. I have a photograph of the 80s, and it was printed with the material that they used to use at that time. But the images of the faces and the people there are not so clear now. Is there a way that I can clear it out, more definition? What can I do about it?
Unfortunately, when you're dealing with a fading situation, kind of like what we talked about earlier, unfortunately, that damage is permanent and not much can be done, unfortunately. I would definitely recommend scanning it online and trying to use maybe Photoshop or something to adjust the contrast, and maybe you can get a little bit more out of that image, but there is not much that a photo conservator can physically do to bring back that image. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you all for your time.